If you are planning to acquire an E2 investor visa, then one of the prerequisites and the mandatory requirement of the immigration program is to invest the total amount of your E2 capital into the business before the visa application, and that basically increases the discomforts between the investors and entrepreneurs of a potential loss in case of a visa denial. So in these situations, in order to avoid that potential loss and at the same time qualifying the requirement of an immigration to invest the money and put the money on stake, there comes the role of an escrow account, which is of an utmost importance to mediate between the both situations. So in this video, let's try and understand what is an escrow account and how does the escrow account works and how does it mitigates the potential risks between the whole program. So stay tuned. Hi, my name is Rahil Sheikh. I'm a business consultant and investment migration expert based in Virginia, USA. In my firm Startup Business Bureau, we provide consulting and management services for foreign investors and entrepreneurs who wanted to establish their business in the US and at the same time they want to pursue their E2 business investor visa programs. So, as a mandatory requirement of an E2 application, the investor or the entrepreneur must have invested the total amount of capital into the business prior to the application submission, and that investment money has to be on stake. So basically, what does that mean is that it's the US business visa program. How does it works is like basically the USCIS expects you or wants you to establish the whole business before the application, which means all the money you invested in the business, all the business premises you have to acquire, business equipments you have to purchase, business utilities you have to engage, every single thing of the business you have to engage and you have to acquire, and business should be either fully operational or on the verge of operations at the time of submitting the application to the USCIS or to the US Embassy or Consulate. So basically, the consulate officer evaluates the application based on these all facts and figures. How much is the amount invested, whether the money is actually on the risk. So you don't necessarily can put the money into your bank account, and the money cannot be sitting there while you are applying for a business visa, except the operational expenses of the business. So most of the times, the investors and entrepreneurs, they get discomfort in this situation where they have to invest the majority of budgeted capital into the business without knowing the outcome of the visa application and without knowing that whether they would be landing to the US or no. So which definitely increases their potential risk of losing the whole capital amount. So in these situations, there is an opportunity that you can potentially use a services of a third party agent, which is called an escrow, who can play the mediate role between the both parties, and at the same time it can it can suffice the investor visa requirements as well. So basically, what is an escrow? Escrow is basically a third party. It's kind of a financial organization. It's a third party agent. It plays a role as similar to the banks, where you put your money to the escrow account to that particular escrow agent, and you highlight a third party receiving person with the contingency of it getting an E2 visa approval. So which means, for example, if you are buying a business and there is a restaurant which you are going to buy, so the three parties are important. One is the sending party, which is definitely you, who is going to send the money to the escrow account. Second one is the potential business for which is a collateral, or for which is an object for which, against which basically you are going to send the money or you are going to pay it to the third party. And the third one is the receiving party, where the third party who is selling you the business, who is potentially in this case is a seller of business, so he is the one who would be receiving the money from you upon the approval of E2 visa. So the three parties, you basically you send the money against the business, and seller receives the money upon the approval of E2 visa. So that's basically a contingency which you put into the escrow system, that once your E2 visa gets approved, you have no control on that money. There is no way that you can take this money back. The money will automatically, the escrow agent will automatically disburse that money to the seller of the business. But if in case the E2 visa gets denied, then in that case the whole money will not be passed on to the seller, and it will be in fact reversed back to you. So which means now your money is on risk. So the E2 immigration requirement is completed, and at the same time the seller is also secured that once your E2 is approved, he would receive his money. So in basically putting an escrow account into the E2 system, or into acquiring your E2 business, that basically mitigates and minimizes your whole risk of potential loss of the business investment. But there are definitely certain limitations to that, and most common of that is, since in the escrow there should be one receiving party, which means there should be a seller of the business who is there to sell a whole ready business to you against one particular X amount of money. So that escrow does not very much openly work in terms of a starting up of businesses. For example, the same if you take an example of a restaurant. So if you are buying an existing restaurant, so there is definitely a seller who is decided, who is agreed on a fixed amount, which he would be putting the money into the escrow. But if it is a new restaurant which you are going to make, or a new coffee shop, for example, you are going to make, or any kind of a business, then in that case the escrow might not work until and unless you really have somebody on the grounds who would take care of the whole logistics and the whole infrastructural development of the whole business. Otherwise it becomes quite challenging, because for a new business there will be for example a leasing agent or a properties management company whom you would take the property or the business premises on lease. So you cannot put an escrow on the lease for a definite indefinite period of time, and that too with the contingency of getting a visa approval. So the lease would not work in that way. Even if the lease is secured, other than the lease, if there is an infrastructural development required, for example in the restaurant you need to build up the whole kitchen, or you need to build up the whole restaurant, so which means then you need to have a contractor, and that contractor cannot work based on the contingency of E2 approval, and he might not be comfortable in getting his payments stuck up into the escrow accounts. So most probably, or generally, in any kind of an existing business, escrow is fine, but in kind of a startup business, escrow is not very commonly accepted or commonly practicable program. Another, the biggest limitation, other than these differentiation between the startup and the existing business, the complication comes in that for the escrow there should be a receiving party, which means the seller of the business, even if it's an existing business which somebody is trying to sell, the seller of the business must agree to accept the whole transaction or to close the whole transaction via escrow. Why the sellers would not be interested into that most of the times? Because that's a very lengthy process in putting the money into the escrow, which means for example, if you are standing today in the month one, we sign a deal, we negotiate the deal, and we sign up a sale purchase agreement with the seller, and then we start preparing the documentations and the business plan and the whole of the application packet for the E2 application. That might take probably, depending on how strong and efficient your current financials are or your current documentations are, but that might take probably some couple of weeks, maybe 6 to 8 weeks time, in order to submit your petition towards the immigration. And once the petition is submitted, then there is a time frame for you to depend on the visa approval or the visa interview, and then the visa approval will come. So practically, in general, we are talking about at least a couple of months, right from the day we sign the SPA and the day we actually execute or we close the deal with the seller. So during this whole couple of months time, it might be 3 months, it might be 5 months, it might be 6 months on an average. So during this whole time period, as per the conditions and the mandatory clause of the SPA or the letter of intent which you might have signed with the seller has to continue the business to the best of his knowledge, skills, and expertise. He has to continue meeting the operating expenses. He has to continue meeting the overall operations and operational management of the business. He has to continue and maintain the business reputation the way it is going on. Everything has to go proper. So which means in until and unless the seller is ready to do that, if it is a desperate deal or a seller is in a hurry or urgency to close the deal faster, he might not be ready to take the responsibility of 6 months or even a couple of months, wait for you to for your approvals to come, and still he would be on a risk of not getting the deal closed because it might not get if the E2 is rejected, then he might not get the money also. So basically that's one of the very tough criteria, because not every seller would ready to go to that long and risky route. The same way you as an investor, you don't want to go to the risky route. The same way the seller of a business also would prefer not to go to that. But in the open market, of course, there are some certain kind of sellers who are not in a rush, who are not in a hurry, who just want to grab a better deal for their business. They are still ready to cooperate with you, and if you happen to find that kind of a seller who is agreed to take a escrow account from you, then you are good to go. So in general, the escrow options are very limited. It's not open for entire E2 programs or entire E2 businesses. It's available subject to the agreement between you and the seller of a business. If both parties agreed, then definitely escrow is there, and then in that case your potential loss in case of a visa denial can be minimized. If you wanted to have any further discussions or understanding, or have some questions and concerns which you want an explanation of, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much. Have a good day.